Hi, this is Matt Baker. Several years ago, I made a video about the 10 greatest European dynasties. But you see, back then, this chart didn't yet exist. And therefore, I wasn't able to show you on a single family tree just how big and dominating the greatest dynasties really were, which is what I'm going to do in this video for the top 4. As you probably know, I released this chart as a limited edition poster when the channel hit 2 million subscribers. Of the 1,000 copies we printed, there's only about 200 left, so if you want to buy one, you should act now. Just head over to usefulcharts.com or simply click the link in the description or pinned comment. Now, if perchance you're watching this in the future when the limited edition is no longer available, take note that we also sell both sides of the chart on an ongoing basis under the titles European Royal Family Tree West and European Royal Family Tree North/East. Okay, so first of all, let me point out that on this chart, everything is color-coded by country, not by dynasty or royal house. So, for example, if we look at the Holy Roman Empire, we can see that there were several dynasties, such as the Ottonians, the Salians, the House of Hohenstaufen, the House of Luxembourg, and of course, the Habsburgs. But they are all shown in yellow to represent that they all reigned over the same political entity, the Holy Roman Empire. Now, the reason why countries often had a change in dynasty, aka royal house, boils down to the fact that until recently, the house a person belonged to was always based on who his or her father was, never on who their mother was, even in situations where the mother was of higher rank. So take, for example, Queen Urraca of Leon. She belonged to the House of Jimenez, but when the throne passed to her son, Alfonso VII, the dynasty switched to the House of Ivrea, as that was the house of Alfonso's father, Rehman. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is zoom out and switch the color coding so that things are now color-coded to show the 4 greatest dynasties instead. So now, all of the members of the House of Capet, including all of its various junior branches in both France and in other countries, are blue. All of the Habsburgs are red, all of the Oldenburgs are yellow, and all of the members of the House of Wettin are green. By doing this, it immediately becomes clear why the House of Capet beats out the House of Habsburg for the top spot. Most people tend to think of the Habsburgs first when it comes to powerful European dynasties, but as you can see here, the Capetian dynasty is way bigger. In fact, it still reigns today in 2 countries. So let me now go through each of the greatest dynasties, starting with number 4, the House of Wettin, shown in green. Although this house is over 1,000 years old, it was only around 330 years ago that it first rose to the rank of king, when Augustus the Strong and then his son, Augustus III, became kings of Poland. Prior to this, the highest rank held by the Wettins had been that of Prince Elector. Anyhow, this branch lost the crown of Poland after this, but then went on to hold the title King of Saxony from 1806 to 1918. However, it was a different branch of the Wettin dynasty that ended up becoming even more important, the one known as Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. This was the house that Queen Victoria's husband, Prince Albert, belonged to. Thus, after Victoria, the next 5 monarchs of the United Kingdom were all members of the House of Wettin, including Queen Elizabeth II, even though from 1917 they chose to use the name Windsor instead. In addition to this, Prince Albert's uncle Leopold became the first ever king of Belgium, and thus, so far, every king of the Belgians has been a Wettin, even though they, since 1917, have used the name House of Belgium. This includes the current king of the Belgians, Philippe, but since he will be succeeded by a daughter, we do know that eventually the House of Wettin will cease to reign in Belgium. But there's more, because a cousin of Prince Albert named Ferdinand, who was a Catholic, married Queen Maria II of Portugal, and thus the final 4 kings of Portugal were also all Wettins, even though they continued to use the name House of Braganza. And then finally, another member of the family, also named Ferdinand, became Tsar of Bulgaria, and thus the three modern czars of Bulgaria were also all Wettins. So that's not too bad for what was, during medieval times, a fairly minor house. Okay, next up is the House of Oldenburg, which, like the House of Wettin, is still reigning today in not one but two countries, one of which is the UK. You see, although formally there was no house change between Queen Elizabeth II and Charles III, technically there was. That is, if we go by King Charles's agnatic, meaning male-only, line. You see, his father, Prince Philip, belonged to a branch of the House of Oldenburg, yet another dynasty that goes back around 1,000 years, and which, in my opinion, is even greater than the House of Wettin. The first person from this dynasty to become king was Christian I of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. You see, he reigned during the time of the Kalmar Union, when all three of the main Scandinavian countries shared a single monarch. And interestingly, even after Sweden broke away, a junior branch eventually ended up ruling there again, from 1751 to 1818. But perhaps even more importantly, someone from that same branch married the daughter of Peter the Great, and thus their descendants became emperors of Russia. Generally, these individuals are considered to be Romanovs, but again, technically they are not, because via the male line, they were actually Oldenburgs. In Denmark-Norway, the senior branch of the House of Oldenburg eventually died out and was replaced by a junior branch known as the House of Glücksburg. But keep in mind, this is not really a separate house. It's still the Oldenburg dynasty, just a different branch. Anyhow, this Glücksburg branch ended up reigning in 4 different countries. First of all, Christian X's younger brother George was chosen to be king of Greece. And then in the next generation, Frederick IX's younger brother was chosen to be king of Norway, which had just become independent. To this day, the House of Oldenburg still reigns in Norway, although it no longer reigns in Denmark due to Queen Margrethe's abdication in 2024. The current king there, Frederick X, while still formally a member of the house, technically belongs to the House of Montpezat, which was the house of his father. Greece, of course, no longer has a monarchy, but because a member of their royal family, Prince Philip, married Queen Elizabeth II, the current monarch of the UK is now an Oldenburg. So, to put it another way, when it comes to the Y chromosome of King Charles, Prince William, and Prince George, they all have the exact same Y chromosome as the last Tsar of Russia, as well as the current King of Norway, because they all descend patrilineally from this Danish king here. Okay, next up is the House of Habsburg, which again is around 1,000 years old. But they reached the rank of king even earlier than the Oldenburgs, in 1273, which is when Rudolf I, previously just a count, was elected king of Germany. His son Albert I was also elected king, as well as his descendant Albert II. But take note that none of these early Habsburg kings were ever crowned Holy Roman Emperor, even though that was the norm for individuals elected to their position. The first Habsburg Holy Roman Emperor was Frederick III, but it was during the next 2 generations that the stage was set for the Habsburgs to become a truly great dynasty. You see, the next emperor, Maximilian I, married Mary, the Duchess of Burgundy, and thus the Habsburgs obtained the Low Countries, aka modern-day Belgium and the Netherlands. But then their son married Joanna of Castile, and thus the dynasty ended up inheriting all of Spain as well, which by that point also included all of southern Italy. So by the time we get to Charles V, the Habsburgs were basically in control of most of the western part of continental Europe. But it doesn't stop there. Through marriage, Charles's brother Ferdinand inherited both Bohemia and Hungary, which also included Croatia. And then Charles's son Philip II inherited Portugal. So yeah, nobody beats the Habsburgs in terms of total land area under their domain. But you see, once the Habsburg dynasty reached this level of dominance, they didn't actually last long. Although the descendants of Maria Theresa continued to use the name Habsburg, again, technically they were not actually members of that dynasty. They were members of the House of Lorraine through Maria Theresa's husband, Francis I. which is why I think that the House of Capet deserves the top spot. First of all, they are way older than any other surviving dynasty on this chart, rising to the rank of king all the way back in 888, a whopping 1,138 years ago. Originally known as the Rebertians, after Robert the Strong, they actually produced two kings of France before the election of Hugh Capet, from whom the dynasty takes its name. At this point, they took over from the Carolingians and stayed on the throne of France for the next 805 years. But you see, this dynasty did not just rule in France. It reigned in many other places as well, such as Portugal, through this line here. And although things eventually passed to an illegitimate line, the father-son succession was never broken, even when the House of Braganza took over. So basically, the male line of Hugh Capet reigned in Portugal all the way to Pedro I, which means that the two emperors of Brazil can also be included in the dynasty. Now, going back to France, the senior line of Capetians was in fact replaced by a more junior branch, known as the House of Valois. But they were still male line descendants of Hugh Capet, as were the members of the House of Bourbon, which ended up replacing the House of Valois. Even Louis-Philippe I, the very last king of France from the House of Orléans, was a male line descendant of Hugh Capet. And then, of course, there's the fact that the House of Bourbon ended up ruling in Spain after the Habsburgs died out there. So every Spanish monarch from 1700 to today belongs to the Capetian dynasty. It doesn't matter that there was a queen here, because she married a male line member of the family, so the agnatic line remained unbroken. Also, take note that in 1759, Naples and Sicily became independent, with a junior branch being put on the throne there. So the House of Capet reigned in southern Italy as well, up until Italian unification. In fact, they had actually reigned there earlier, back when Louis IX's younger brother Charles conquered the area in 1266. His descendants ended up reigning on the mainland portion of Sicily only, known as Naples, until 1442, which is when they lost the kingdom to Aragon. And interestingly, through this branch of the family, the Capetians ended up reigning all the way over in Hungary and Poland because of this marriage here. And although they ended up losing both thrones, because Louis the Great had no sons, they did reign in Poland again, albeit very briefly, when the future Henry III of France became the first elected king of the Poland-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Overall, the House of Capet reigned in so many places that I wasn't even able to include them all on the chart. For example, before taking over the throne of France, the Bourbons reigned in Navarre, and for most of the Latin Empire's 57-year existence, it was ruled by the House of Courtenay, yet another branch of the House of Capet. So yeah, the Capetians were not just kings, they were emperors. Now, I mentioned that the House of Capet still reigns in two countries today. One is Spain, where Felipe VI, a member of the Spanish Bourbon branch, is king. But what is the other? Well, it's actually the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. That's because Charlotte, the reigning Grand Duchess of Luxembourg, married a member of the Bourbon Parma branch of the Capetians, and thus the next three Grand Dukes, including the current one, are all Capetians. So that was a visual look at the four greatest European dynasties, three of which continue to reign today. Like I say, there's still some copies of this limited edition chart available. So if you want one, head over to usefulcharts.com right now, or simply click the link that is about to appear on screen right now. Thanks for watching.